What's going on, guys? It's Kin. I'm back with another video. Today I wanted to take a look at Bitcoin and the crypto market as a whole, bring up a few things that have been on my radar, and possibly discuss how the market might perform going into this year and the medium term in general. Obviously, predicting the short term is extremely hard to do. I don't advise doing it, but determining or coming up with patterns is sometimes useful, but not always recommended. If we take a look at Bitcoin, currently it's at 98,000. It's down a little bit from its all-time high back 2 weeks ago. One thing to note is that this is the longest Bitcoin has ever gone without having a 30% correction when accounting for daily closes. It's been, I'm pretty sure, around 800 days, which is extremely long. Before this, the longest was like 300 days, and even then is a really long time. So we are due for a 30% correction at some point. Could this be the start of it? It definitely could. If we just take a look from the top, go down 30% right now, it actually brings you down to where the 20-week SMA currently is. That's at 75,000. By the time it actually goes down there, the 20-week SMA will be higher, but if it were to go down there like in the next couple days, it'll be down at exactly the 20-week SMA at about 75K. That's something to keep in mind. So we probably are due for a 30% correction. Could it happen in January? It could. In my last crypto video that I made, we went over how usually Bitcoin sees a correction in January for the post-halving year. So it's definitely possible we get that correction this month. I'm making this video January 4th, 2025. You guys should go check out my previous crypto video if you guys haven't already. Another thing that I'm looking at is ETH Bitcoin. I think it's possible that ETH Bitcoin has bottomed. So far, it put in a higher low. And I'm kind of just waiting to see what it does when it gets back to the 20-week SMA. By the way, the 20-week SMA is the red line. The green line is the 21-week EMA. So I'm waiting to see what happens when it gets back to it. Is it going to get rejected, or is it going to be able to break through? I hope that it can break through, because I think 2025 will be a good year for ETH. I think ETH has struggled for a long time, but 2025 should be a good year for ETH. I went over this in my previous video too, my previous crypto video. You guys should go check that out if you haven't, once again. But that's what ETH has just struggled for a while. It's down 58% from the high in December 2021. ETH Bitcoin, not ETH USD. This is something to keep in mind too. I personally think, like I said, that it's very close to, it probably has bottomed already. And if it hasn't bottomed, the bottom should be soon. But, I mean, yeah, 2025 should be better for ETH. Now, when we take a look at Bitcoin, because I do want to kind of keep this video strictly for Bitcoin, there's the left translated cycle theory. I don't think that it's going to play out like that unless something really happens in the market, like an outside event that causes the price to really crash and then it just doesn't recover. But I think this consolidation period that we saw in 2024 from March until October-ish, I think that was a good consolidation period for Bitcoin's next run up, and that is what helped it get to 100K. But, I am looking for this correction, but one thing that I have been looking at is the 10-year yield. So if we take a look at the 10-year yield, and the reason why this is important is because I've been comparing the 10-year yield to the S&P. Now, Bitcoin tends to follow the S&P. It tends to follow the stock market. When the stock market's selling off, Bitcoin will usually struggle and sell off as well. When the S&P is trending up, trending higher, moving up, Bitcoin will usually follow, right? So when you look at the 10-year yield, I'm going to pull it up. There's a couple times recently, ever since like 2022, or actually 2021, because I'm on a weekly time frame right now. There's about 3 times when the 10-year yield broke out of a trend line. I just drew these trend lines. When the 10-year yield broke out, the S&P sold off. So I'm going to overlay the S&P on a new price scale. The S&P is the pink line. Try to follow along with me. But every time the 10-year yield broke out, you can see it broke out in this candle. That's when the S&P topped, right? This time it actually had a big correction, a pretty big correction for the stock market, right? 10-year yield broke out. It had a really strong move up. Boom. When it topped, when the 10-year topped, the S&P bottomed, okay? When the 10-year broke out again in July 2023, the S&P had a local top and sold off. But then the S&P bottomed when the 10-year topped. And then once again, now the 10-year looks like it's breaking out. Now, if the 10-year keeps breaking higher, that could mean for a correction in the S&P. Now, even though the Fed is dropping rates, there's talk that the Fed doesn't really control the long end of the yield curve. They only control the short end. So I don't know how much higher the 10-year can go. I mean, historically, it has been higher. Like a long time ago in the 90s, it was higher. And even in the early 2000s, but I just don't know how much higher the 10-year can go if it were to break out. But even if it just breaks out a little bit and goes up to maybe a little bit over 5%, that could call for an S&P correction. And if we do get a correction in the S&P, we could get a correction in Bitcoin. So it kind of all ties together. This is something that I've been looking at, right? So it looks like the 10 years breaking out. We got to just wait and see. And this is on a weekly time frame. So this all takes a long time to play out. That's the thing too. We might not know in a few days. It might take weeks to play out. So that's something that I've been looking at. If we just go to the S&P chart, right? I'll remove the overlay because it's the same thing. The S&P bounced off of it's pretty much at its 20-week SMA. So, it's possible that it holds it as support and keeps moving higher. Or if the 10-year does break out, it's possible the S&P kind of breaks below and starts going into a bigger correction. This is something that we're going to have to wait and see. Something that's on my radar. I think you guys should pay attention to it too. But it's possible that it doesn't play out. Things don't always have to play out the same. It's possible that the trend will break and it doesn't follow. So it's something to keep an eye out for. Now, when it comes to the dollar, I don't really follow the dollar too much. A lot of people say that when the dollar is going up, Bitcoin goes down. And when the dollar goes down, Bitcoin is going up. But there's been times when it didn't really play out like that. And they weren't necessarily reversely correlated. So I'm not really too sure. If you guys have any thoughts about the dollar, let me know. I've also heard some people say that the dollar might rally because of other, the thing about the DXY is that it's also based on other currencies too. So it's something else to take into account. But I don't know when we get the next Fed meeting, if it's I'm pretty sure it's in January. So that's going to be interesting too. If we want to take a look at the interest rates real quick, or this is the unemployment rate. I'm pretty sure was yesterday the first unemployment print of November. I don't know if we got an unemployment print for December yet, even though it was the first Friday of the month. I'm not sure, but interest rates, where are they? This is inflation. Another thing to keep an eye out is inflation and interest rates because the Fed has their dual mandate. It's just a lot of things are kind of happening at once, and it's going to be interesting to see how they play out. But those are basically the few things I wanted to bring up. I think that 10-year yield analysis with the S&P is going to be something really interesting to follow in the next few weeks or months. But you guys let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. Check out all the links in the description below as well. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.